I arrived in Vietnam about a year ago, and one of the things I found strange at first, or alarming, was the amount of bikes on the road and the way people rode, and the whole sort of thing about bike culture. I mean, this is a picture I took with a family on a bike with no helmets, which is really that crazy to me. So I started this Instagram thing called Back of a Bike, and one of the things I found was this. Around Tet time, there was suddenly a load of kumquat trees on the back of bikes. So I live in Tay Ho. There's a street called Tonop Van, and there were just streams of kumquats going around the place. But actually, the whole thing about taking things on bikes, this is one of the main exhibits as you go into the Museum of Ethnology, and it shows fish traps. So this goes way back. So the idea of carrying lots of things on a bike, originally a bike, you know, which is now transferred to from bicycle to bike, is a tradition here. And I mean, these are sort of pictures of bikes going back to the 40s and so on. There's an old Peugeot there. So the history of the bike in Vietnam is quite long, and people have learned to adapt the way of carrying things on the back of bikes. So I thought, having got all these pictures, what do you do with them? So I decided to do an exhibition. And the exhibition started off as being the back of a bike, which was my Instagram title. Top picture there was what it was going to be. I thought, what about having something on the back of a bike that was just long and crazy? And that was the idea. So that was going to be all it was. But as I went along, I found that, you know, the idea of just doing things on the back of a bike had been done before by this guy, Hans Kemp, which is called Bikes of Burden, and another book called Bikehood. So I started to go a bit further than just, wow, crazy things on the back of a bike. I started to look at the whole thing about bike culture and the way the bike is used. I mean, this is one of the things that for somebody, I call myself an outsider, observing, is a family of four, and, you know, they're not protected. In fact, they've got a helmet just here, and they're not wearing it. So the whole thing was a little bit, you know, and then I actually got a picture eventually of 5 people on a bike, which I was trying to get over a period of time. I mean, this is about the whole thing about safety. A tree fell down, one of the biggest trees in my area, and you weren't supposed to go underneath it. In the UK, they would cordon the area off for about 2 months, and people were just going underneath it as if there was nothing happening at all. That was just the bike culture of saying, hey, what, it's a tree, get over it, you know? Actually, get under it. Anyhow, in this case, so then I started taking these pictures, and, you know, obviously they're different pictures. That's a still picture because the bike is just parked there, but I happen to have my DSLR open and was using it when this guy came by, and I was able to take a picture of it. You must remember that if you're taking pictures of moving targets, it's going to be very difficult to get stuff. So these are some of my favorites. These are when the bikes are not moving, and this is showing one of the uses of bike is for vendors. This is a pomelo seller, and it's a candy floss seller. And so the bike became a sort of thing, as I started to look, used in different way. This is Mr. Kwong. He's always there. I don't know if he does a lot of business, but he's a taxi service. And every time I go past, he's there. I mean, he probably gets 1 journey a day, but, you know, he looks cool, and he seems to hang out there, and, you know, so that's another element of the bike culture. This one, this was in Dalat. I went to sort of a Art Deco building, which was owned by the last king of Vietnam. And again, this is something, I don't understand what that's about. I need to explore that more. But again, it's obviously another thing about the bike in Vietnam and how it's used. And then I start to look a bit further down, and then you get these sort of clothes, which I thought, why do people go around in 75, well, let's put it into centigrades. We're talking about 40 a couple of weeks ago. How can you wear that? Apparently, it's to stop the sun affecting your skin. I didn't realize that. So I started to find out about this sort of stuff. And then I realized that when it rained, because you haven't got a car and you're on a bike, there's a whole load of things. And then, so there were people wearing things. So you've got the bike helmet, you've got the raincoat, and you've got the face mask, which is supposed to protect you from particles of whatever. I don't know if they do. And the other obvious use of the bike is for transportation. This is a tool that was ordered for my the college I'm teaching at, and the guy turned up on the back of a bike. I couldn't believe it. Expensive piece of kit. Anything could have happened, and then what, you know? And here's a guy, I don't know if he's selling or carrying or so on. And then other things like this guy here, he's obviously taking food to a restaurant somewhere, they're all waiting there, and he's on his phone. So, you know, maybe that restaurant is not going to be having a lot of vegetables today or so on. I saw this one in a place called Ang Bang. I can't understand why the guy was carrying a log. It just looks unimportant. I can't think you do anything with it. It's not straight. It's bent all over the place. So why? But there you go. For the exhibition, I wanted to do a thing about safety. So I wanted a load of helmets, and my local second-hand shop, the guy said, I said, can I borrow some helmets? And he says, yeah. He says, have them. When you finish with them, throw them away. They were dirty, so I had to give them a bath, hence that picture of the helmets in the bath. So eventually, what happened was I went over a couple of weeks, and the exhibition turned out to be like this. If you remember the original design, it had to be scaled down, it had to be more sensible. And this is what we have in the end. And then last night, the exhibition was opened. It's still on for 2 weeks. And then you have that sort of showing the bikes as people, that's happening in Vietnam. But I actually found that I had a little electric bike. It had to be electric. I wasn't going to contribute to all the smog. And this is me carrying stuff. I call it the art of loading. I'm not very good at it at all, because I fell off the bike once carrying stuff. But basically, back of a bike, you know, anything goes. You can get anything on the back of a bike here. And it's amazing. It's amazing. It's been a massive learning curve for me. But it's going to be different when I go back to UK. We just can't do that. Health and safety rules. Thank you very much.